Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is part of our government leadership engage series. We have today with us Abeer Mhairbi, the founder of Tally.co and one of our alumni. She will share with us her success stories and her journey with embracing one of the values in the government leadership model, which is being open to the world. When I met Abeer, she was working in the private sector, and she had a lot of openness to the world at that time. But mashallah, now a few years later, I see that she has a lot of stories to share about connecting to different organizations globally. And now as she steps into her entrepreneurial spirit too. We're so happy to have you with us, Abeer, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Maria. I'm so glad to be with you today. I'm so excited to share my very humble story with my recently started entrepreneurship business that related to what you just said. And trust me, this wouldn't be successful without all the platform that is available within the UAE. For example, when I launched it through the Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid SME program, Tajr Abu Dhabi. It's very much familiar that you can see these opportunities that they encourage the Emirati entrepreneurs to start their businesses, be creative in what they do. So, we are so lucky to have these opportunities for us. And maybe if you don't mind, I'll share with you the reason behind where I came from this. Actually, the story started, or the spark started, when I completed the happiness program, the National Happiness Program. And it was the first batch, if I remember. That spark built something within me, and I've decided from that time that yes, I need to transform my career path, because that's whatever I've covered during that opportunity addressed me and my passion. So I decided to seek that passion. And the first step I did after completing the happiness positivity program is I looked for continuing my studies as an MBA, and I decided to take it in France. The reason behind it, because I wanted to have that international network exposure, and it proves me right, because from there I built a very diverse network from different background, different specialization, and build that curiosity in me related to what we covered in the national program. So I decided to do that, and during my studies, I took an opportunity to work with an international organization called the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD. It's an international organization that works to build better policies for better lives. So it's linking the business with the concept that we've learned regarding the well-being of what we do in our lives and at work. So it's creating that link between the policy making and the better life that we all seek for. So that started for me the curiosity to dig more in the SDGs, and there where I've learned about the SDGs, which is the Sustainability Development Goals. And I had the opportunity to work with the team in the North Africa and the Middle East. And we were basically what we were doing is shaping the policies that foster prosperity, opportunity, and well-being for all, and of course the standardization for policies and procedure across the countries. And during my work there, I've get in touch with the UAE agenda for SDGs, and there it was like an eye-opener for me. And I've seen how much the UAE as a country level are investing a lot to meet these international standardization. And I was so impressed to see how much the different initiatives that the country's been doing, addressing the different SDGs. Just to, I'm sure that everybody's familiar with the SDGs values or goals. Yeah, for example, the no poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, and so on. It's around 17 goals. And I've seen the UAE measured against each of these SDGs measure. يعني just for example, Dubai to be the first city in the region to achieve zero food waste. Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Global Initiatives Foundation that protected 3.6 million children in vulnerable countries. And the list is going on and on and on. So as a country level, we're doing amazing. And everybody knows that, mashallah, the UAE is #1 across the world as a donor comparing to other countries. And that was like, for me, is another eye-opener that we are doing a lot, we are investing a lot, and we have this culture of giving and supporting vulnerable countries. But when I look at it from top perspective, from higher perspective, which is the international standards. So when I came back from from this experience, and I realized that the country is doing so much and investing a lot on addressing the SDGs. But when I looked at as a private sector, there is a misunderstanding of what we need to address. So there's a challenge. I've seen it that private sectors, we need to address something within the private sector. So for example, and that's what the reason behind why I decided to launch this business or this consultancy business is I want to help the businesses to have this awareness on the social impact. It's very important when you want to create something for the community, you need to link it to a value creation. So you need to create the value first and what you want exactly to have it as a value. So with it, you can measure this in the end. So that's something I think need to be addressed as an awareness for the businesses. Again, also it has to be part of the business strategies. Many now, if you will ask private sectors, what have you done for the community? It's the answer will be like more philanthropy approach, like for example, donation, sponsorship, which is amazing. But it's very important to address these initiatives or programs launched by the private sector to a value that they need to create ahead. And it's something that also missing within the private sector. And I've recently looked at a study done by the Dubai Chamber of Commerce that shows that the SME scores the lowest in the community needs. And that doesn't mean that they're not doing enough. It means that whatever they're doing is not directed to a specific value. It's something could be nice to have, or like a checkbox that check we've done this, but it's not linked to a value that they needed to identify ahead. So that's something also for me is very important to help the businesses to understand and to create that value before doing any kind of initiative or approaches. And it's also important to be part of the company's strategies. So my vision.
One second. Abeer, so basically to recap, you came from the private sector, you worked in the private sector and you saw their areas of contribution, and then you worked with the OECD and learned more about the SDGs and the sustainability goals and how the UAE is trying to build on them and create social impact. And then you bridged that by the gap between the private sector and the social impact through Tali.
Yes.
Okay, خبريني عن تالي وما أعرف if you want to tell us about the story of the name بعد behind
Yes,
it.
of course. Yeah, maybe I can tell you the story about Tali before I jump to the next part of the scenario of this story. So Tali, I don't know, shall I explain it in English or in Arabic? I will continue in English. So Tali, it's an Arabic name, يعني اسم محلي. It's a very old name and very strong name, and it was he's a person. He's my mom's uncle, and he had a very strong muscle and very strong person, and he's tall and very energetic. So the people around him always reach up to him to help them in physical need or any activity that they might need. So I got the name. My mom was sharing this story. I said, I can name my business Tali because we are trying to reach out to the community and try to help the community with what their challenges is or their needs are. So that's where I came to name it Tali & Co.
Lovely. So bringing those virtues of facilitating change and help.
So that's the when we are saying that creating that link. So basically that's what I'm trying to do, is creating like a triangle. So we have the policymakers, and we already have national priorities. It's very clear to us. So what we need is to creating that link between the private sector and these national priorities and make them whatever. So basically making the private sector more active than proactive rather than active. So be prepared, be ready for the change, the necessity, and ensuring that they talk to their stakeholders. So currently there is no link between all these three channels, which is the private sector and the policymakers, and we as a supporter to this, to create that triangle link. So of course, this would not happen, Dr. Mariam, without the purpose-driven leaders who will ensure these corporate leadership changes within the businesses and creating these value. So it's important to create the value, not only making the profit, but also creating the value that you want to achieve in the community. It's very nice to have a very great revenues from the business, but you get that revenue, but what have you done for the community where you operate or where you serve? It's very, very important questions that leaders need, in the business need to ask when they set their strategies. I'm sure you've heard about, maybe it's a good to share an example. If you heard about Mohammed Yunus, he changed completely the banking system idea in Bangladesh, where what he did is an inclusive economy. So he didn't just think as a banker, he think how to help his community. So he was giving loans like $24. It's nothing, but the huge investment, it is a huge investment for the people, the vulnerable people that got advantage of that opportunity. So he made a win-win situation for him as a business and for the community who's and his stakeholders, part of his stakeholders. So that's one important that we need those purpose-driven leaders in this organization. I don't know if you have a question or shall. Okay.
Yes.
So if you want to ask me, why you're doing this, why you want to achieve this, it's very important for me, at least, is I want to be part of that transformation into deploying the UAE SDGs agenda objectives, because we want to be part. So it's not only the government, we want us all to be part of that, to support in driving these UAE SDGs objectives and to emphasize on the national priorities. It's very important to understand these national priorities and make them part of our even strategies and help to achieve to be an international standard. And of course, the approach, we're not saying we want it to be top down. It's actually bottom up, because you are considering all the stakeholders, the community, the people, the business, the policymakers. So we all share our concerns, our needs, and then we can build the value that we want to achieve and create that inclusive economy. All of us aware that, mashallah, the UAE government, for example, now if there's the dates farming, the UAE government, what does they do? That they support the farmers, the local farmers, and they buy the dates from the local farmers. So it's like creating a business, but helping the local farmers to be productive and active. So it's, again, it's a win-win situation. This is an example on a government level, but for the private sector, they can do a lot similar to these inclusive economy initiatives, which is, I think that's something we can do a lot in the UAE.
So basically investing also in social enterprises. So it's an organization which benefits society directly. When we talk about being, thank you, by the way, for sharing this, the success story of Bangladesh and your experience. I wanted to ask you about, today we're talking about being open to the world, and how, of course, when you're dealing with the private sector, they're coming from different backgrounds, different countries, they have different value systems, and when they are working here with the UAE and with our agenda and with our vision, maybe with the Centennial, of course, globally, we're all working on the SDGs. How can it be a situation that is win-win for us and for them, and في نفس الوقت, at the same time, there is a valuable exchange of knowledge, of experiences, not just financial exchange.
One example to that, how we can create that, is the international private sector. They are obliged, or actually it's part of their KPI, to be active in creating a value in the countries that where they operate. So it is something that it is part of their mandate to create that value in the communities. And if they have that passion, they want to do it, but they're lost. They don't know how to address it. And the platform or the opportunities, there are lots of opportunities that they can invest in. So that's where we step in. We're creating that link. We know that they want to achieve something, but if they're not sure what to address, and we can create that value for them to make an impactful approach or initiatives that address the society's needs or the values that they want to create.
And you, as an Emirati leader, what tools do you need to have in order for you to create that bridge and those connections?
The awareness of the national priorities. Yeah, for example, when I launched my business, or maybe right before launching the business, I made sure that I go and meet with different policymakers. For example, I met the Red Crescent, the Dubai Community Development Authority, MAN, UAE, CSR. So there are lots of policymakers, even Dubai Chamber of Commerce, Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce. So I made sure to understand what is the challenges that we have, that for me to carry it to the private or the companies that they want to be part of the social impact. So for me, it's very important to be updated, to be there, to understand these needs and how we can align it to the company's strategies. So that's something very important for me, to keep that updated on the needs. Studies, there's a lot of studies that we create within these entities or policymakers. These very important studies, for us, it's like the source of our proposals to the private sector.
And so when you're dealing with the private sector, you are giving them the national agenda, so you're connecting them to the UAE's vision. And you mentioned the studies. Is there anything else that, as a soft skill, maybe something that you learned from your experience also with, working in the private sector قبل, ولا in studying abroad or with the OECD, like some soft skills that help us maybe integrate this openness to the world and bringing in the change by being inclusive?
Maybe the network, Dr. Mariam, creating this network among whoever I meet increases the possibility of finding the best solution, the best way forward. This is something I've learned when I worked with OECD, the private sector, and so on. Plus, it's when I look at whatever objective that they want to achieve, you always see it's linked to a specific target or linked to a specific pillar. So everybody is working towards that pillar. So that's another thing for me. I learned it from my experiences with the different private sectors I worked with and with the OECD, that there's a specific target that you always make sure that you align to it and address it whenever you launch a new initiative or a business.
So a common value that you share with them. Okay, great. You mentioned purpose-driven leaders and your journey of looking for purpose and seeking deeper meaning and value, and now creating more opportunities for people through your company and through the work that you do to enhance purpose-driven leadership. Maybe if you can share with us something about purpose.
Exactly, this is it. For example, for me, my purpose is that to create that impact or the transformation of the UAE from deploying the SDGs, and that's pushing me so hard. And so it's the purpose for me is to bring the best to the community, to bring the alignment of what we want to achieve. It's to me creating that impact. It's very important. It's always, whenever I work on something, I make sure that there is an impact to be measured upon it. To be inclusive, to consider all the stakeholders. It's not just me and them. It's a big stakeholder that we need to identify. And making sure that this is the value that I want to bring to the society. So that purpose for me is the high agenda for me that's driving me to, or started a new journey for me.
Beautiful. We have some questions in the audience, and at the same time, well, I'd like to learn more about where the backgrounds are from the audience, if they're in the private sector, the public sector, or if they are entrepreneurs and starting their own businesses, so we can maximize the benefit here with Abeer. Okay, there is no doubt that community diversity is healthy and shapes international forms of countries, and the UAE governmental sector shouldn't be a part of diversity. How can this conflict the idea of emiratizing the government or even the private sector socially? I'm not sure, Yunus, if I'm getting your question. Are you talking about emiratization and the effect on diversity? And feel free to unmute yourself if you have a question to Abeer.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Thank you for this session. Actually, my question is that, as you know, in the UAE, diversity is one of the characteristics of the society, and we can find it very clear in this in the private sector. We find many nationalities, many cultural backgrounds, people work there coming from. But in the government sector, this kind of diversity is a little bit less. So how does that affect the idea of Emiratizing the field? Everybody is calling for Emiratizing and have all the Emiratis there everywhere. I mean, how can we benefit from the diversity that people come in from different backgrounds while we are calling for Emiratizing all sectors? How can this be affecting socially? I hope you get my question.
If I'm not mistaken, your question is that you're comparing between the Emiratization implementation within the private sector and the public sector, and it's more obvious in the public sector, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's a comparison, and at the same time, how can this affect? We need diversity, there's no doubt. But if we are calling for Emiratizing all the sectors, we will reduce the diversity. And how can there is a type of conflict between this idea and that? How can we adapt? How can people socially will be aware of this?
Abeer, do you want to take it or should I?
Go ahead, Dr. Amreen.
Okay, so my understanding of Emiratization is that it's not 100% Emiratization, right? So we're doing, it's not like, for example, in Saudi, there's 100% Saudization. In the UAE, it's just having, I think, 10% or like a minimum number of Emiratis in each organization to increase diversity, actually, to make sure that the organization in the private sector does have Emirati representation and is always connected to our vision, our social impact, and everything else that we're working with in the UAE. This is how I see it. So we will never lose that diversity when it comes to the private sector. But maybe Abeer, you have more insight because you worked in the private sector.
Yes, actually, you're right. It's not that we are saying it's 100% monetization, but it's adding the percentage based on the targeted position, and it's very different when you look at it as a private and public sector. There's a lot of diversify opportunities in the private sector because the discipline is completely different. It's more of specialization, and you will see a lot of different nationalities and different approaches. But when we talk about the SDGs diversity, I think their focus were more of female and male diversify. So I remember when I was with the OECD, the time that where the UAE announced the equality of the female pay. So it was like big news for the OECD at the time, and I was so proud to be part of that during my work there, during that announcement. And it's always important to make sure that we are aligned with these international standards. But again, it's we're talking in different areas, private and public. So the needs are completely different.
Assalamu alaikum, Ms. Abeer. This is Salim Siddiqui, and I work for World Bank. And it was very interesting that you made reference to Muhammad Yunus for his microfinancing, right? And he was the visionary, and then he was given the Nobel Prize for what he did. So my question would be, since we work with most of the developing countries here from the World Bank, different projects of different scales, going from billions of dollars to, say $300 million and all that. But the thing is, when we come to UAE, right? And you also touched upon the advisory services that the banks offer, say advising rural population on capital, namely structuring and funding options to reduce fund costs. One important core thing that I see is, some time back I was reading Brazil is the largest exporter of fruits.
Mm-hmm.
But this study was in comparison to India. So please forgive me if I'm referring to some countries. And but Brazil produces only 30% of fruits that India produces. So the huge gap of 70%, right? Even though they produce 70% less, they are the largest exporter of fruits. And so that was referring to the infrastructure. In India, though farmers, rural community engages in farming, and the infrastructure is not present. So coming back to my question and to the context of UAE, now we live in the digital age, right? So our businesses and our entrepreneurs, however small they are, they should be looking to the eye of the businesses digitally, right?
Yes.
So in this sector or in this field, how is the government or any banking, organization helping people to become digitally on par with the developed countries? I mean, of course, UAE is a developed country. I'm not saying that, but when we look at the, forgive me if I went off the tangent there, but when we talk about the rural people that have less education, right, and they do not have the technology knowledge of technology. Is there any initiatives going on right now?
Thank you so much, Salim, for your input there.
My pleasure.
You're rightly touched on it, and that's something I've seen it with my partners who are operating in vulnerable countries like in Asia, like in Africa. So they do address these challenges using digitalization. I saw a project that they worked in Africa that because it's very hard to facilitate, like network or digital platform for people in, remote areas and very far away from the civilization, but they need to have their, digital contact where they can access, for example, their banking system, their school, so it's many of things that we want to bring it closer to these communities. And there's a lot of initiatives that address these needs within the communities. I've seen another project in Vietnam. Our partners were just touring around in Vietnam, and they've seen a lot of women, saleswomen, on the street, and they wanted to see how they can help them. So they created the link between these women with the businesses to find their inclusive economy solution. just like the one that I mentioned in Africa, that they created a solution, helping these communities and the businesses that they want to do something for these communities. And there's a lot of examples that we can see it very obvious in the, and also the example that I've just shared with you, that for example, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Foundation that helping the 3.6 million children in these vulnerable countries. So there's a lot of initiatives. It's only the matter of how we can create that link and bringing that attention to also, even the solutions, which I was mentioning earlier, that before finding the solution is that we need to identify the value that you want to create. And for example, yes, so once we understand the value that we want to create, we can easily find the solution and the business partner who will help in creating that change or advancement.
Thank you so much for sharing those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Salim. This is such a great question. Actually, the digital gap is something that we will all have to address in all countries. I know that the rural farming situation in India also will benefit a lot from maybe connecting to the private sector and having those social enterprises, join hands and help them connect digitally to the supply chain. Some of the initiatives in the UAE are also, like Abeer mentioned earlier, with Ma'an and with a lot of the other organizations have put on the forefront the digitalization. And I'm sure, Abeer, in the work that you do also, like the all around the world, like, reducing the digital gap is one of the targets. Okay.
Sure, indeed. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have some questions. Is there a platform that consolidates such initiatives? Social impact initiatives?
I didn't see, maybe no, there is one. I think it's either Man. They have like, they showcase the requirements of donations or initiatives that they are overseeing. I've seen it with the Man. I've seen it with the Red Crescent. There's a lot of initiatives that something that you can select and be part of that initiative. But that's something, it's like the added, it's another added value rather than creating it within the organization. So that's what I do more, basically. It is within the organization itself, the build-up of their strategy. It's creating that, the value. And but of course, it doesn't mean that they isolate themselves from these initiatives that is in these platforms, whether with Ma'an or with the Red Crescent at all. So it's always the balance is the one that we are seeking for.
Great. Abeer, Dalal was saying that she wants to start a business. And I think stepping into your entrepreneurial spirit, and especially in times of uncertainty such as COVID, and I think you started the business around that time, صح? So what are some of the tools that entrepreneurs can tap into, especially if they have a purpose such as creating social impact? So how can they take that leap?
Definitely, Dalal, I wish you all the best. You made the right decision because we have the right platform. I was just sharing right in the beginning, because we have a lot of government entities that are there to help Emirati entrepreneurs. I don't know if you've heard, for example, the creating of what we call it Ghadan 21 initiative. There's another also economic accelerator for IT, basically the Hub 71. There's a lot of opportunities, and the UAE is becoming more and more a great business hub nationally and internationally, which is going to be a really big challenge for us as Emirati entrepreneur, because now it's open for everybody nationally and there's a lot of competition going to be. So it's a healthy challenge, because here you will compete with international standards that we all seek for, and that's all what we want also to embrace within our activities, whether we do it in our own businesses or even at the private or public sector. So you have the platform. You can reach out to this platform. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid program, SME program, definitely is a great way to start if you're based here in Dubai. They will help you with how you can start. Even, for example, for my business, I didn't require an office as a startup business. So that's something, release the tension of having, for example, an office. So there's a lot of facilitation of helping the entrepreneur objective. If you want to start with this, you mentioned, Dr. Mariam, that if it's something related to creating a social impact, it's always important to start small, and you grow from there. Have a focused target or objective that you want to achieve, and you can build from there. For example, you can have a focused theme. For example, if you can say, I want to have that social impact within youth development or inclusive economy. So have that specific targets that you want to achieve, and build from there.
Amazing, thank you. We have another question. How can these initiatives, like initiatives with social impact, how can they target local experts so that they can also be involved in it?
Very excellent question, because that's what we want to do. We want to bring that local expertise, local need, because we are here in the UAE, so we know better what we need. We know better what will help our communities. So when we come and sit with a business, and they will say, okay, we want to do something, but we are not sure how to start. What we do is we do first a diagnostic of their challenge, diagnostic of their stakeholders, and build from there. So once we diagnose, we will create a value or propose a value for the business where they can address that specific target. And there we can put a recommendation for these values. And of course, our expertise will help a lot in identifying these values that we want to create. For example, just the example I mentioned, the local farmers. The UAE understood that we have farms and we have demands that how they can market their products or their farming products. So they create that value by understanding the needs of the local farmers, making them part of the advancement of the farming system. So from there, we can build a lot of example within our communities and these initiatives that we want to create.
Amazing, thank you. Okay, we have another question. What is the main challenge to change cultural behavior and how to overcome it? So I guess if you're also dealing with different organizations with different cultures, how can what are some of the main challenges, and how can we maybe bridge them, and bringing it back to being open to the world?
Yes, probably the main challenge is that it's a different cultures, different way how we can look at these challenges. For example, when I sit with international organization, they look at these challenges differently than how I see it or preserve it. I can give you an example. Recently, we have this project in Saudi Arabia, and And they had this initiative or objectives to launch Be Kind initiative. And this initiative include, like, for example, posting pictures. And our target audience were women. And it was very challenging to pass this. Of course, who designed that initiative is an international consultant, but they are addressing it for a local audience, which is in Saudi Arabia. So it was very challenging to bring that to the attention of the international organization, that sometimes it's very hard to people in these communities sharing their personal pictures on a public platform. So it's sometimes difficult to share these challenges with an international perspective with an Emirati or a local perspective. Sometimes it happens a lot.
And what are some ways to overcome that cultural clash that can happen?
It's like the example that you were saying earlier, that we need a local expertise within whatever we design or introduce, because we know the needs, we know exactly how to address these needs, and we need the expertise. But for us, our input to address these needs, it's us who knows exactly these needs and how we can tackle them.
Hello.
Go first.
Yes, so sorry for interrupting. I'm Fatma Al-Marzougi, and I'm recently reading about, searching about social entrepreneurship. What is it exactly? How I can help? What I can do? Because I studied cultures and societies. So I'm so into it, so into the researching about what is the gap between what we need here in the society, what's the let's say what's the society are wanting, where are the gaps. But the thing here is that if someone wants to start a business or to be in the field of social impact, you've talked about the the enterprises that can help us to start the business, and there are consultancies here, local consultancies that can help us. But the question here is that when I did my researches in my studies, it was for the university, for the reason of my the requirement of my university researches. But as a person alone, how to really find these gaps and let's say know exactly, like, these are the needs of the society, and here is the exact gap here. I know that you said, like, there are these companies or enterprises who consult us on these gaps, where are the local gaps here in the society. But what is the other ways, or what are the other tools for individuals to find these gaps, for individuals who want to start a business in the social impact field?
Yes. Thank you so much, Fatma, for your question. I can tell the passion behind that question, and how much you are passionate about creating that social impact within the community. And I'm so happy to see people that they have that understanding that we need to understand the needs before addressing these needs, or creating initiatives, nice initiatives that we introduce it to the community. And it's basically, Fatma, it depends on you. If you are thinking of it as just like what I was mentioning to Dalal, if you have a focused target, for example, if you want to do an value creation of your social impact around youth, or around helping environment, focusing, for example, in the well-being of workers, whatever specialization you want to do. If you have a focus on that, you can start from there. And you can focus on it, understanding these challenges from the national priority policymakers. And from them, for example, that's what I did. As I mentioned, that I've met with these different entities that have the different national priorities that we as a community need to address it. So I understood these needs from the national organization. And from it, I've started to put together my proposal wherever I meet with a client. So it's basically, I'm not keeping it as a focused theme, but I'm trying to build that curiosity within these different entities. So it depends, but if you're just starting, have that focused theme, focus target, and there it's with interacting with the policymaker, you can identify the need and build from there.
All right, thank you, dear. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fatma, for the question. And thank you, Abeer. You mentioned curiosity, and we have Esma Al-Hamid, who also mentioned, I think asking people and truly listening could help. I think it's all about really being present and designing with people, because empathy is the tool that we're using here.
Absolutely, because even part of our methodology when we propose something to our client is, as I said, we diagnose, we propose, we engage with the stakeholders. There's a lot of question and answer. I was happy that Fatma just mentioned that she did this. She wants to do that kind of research and studies. So that's very important part of the methodology of the value creation that we want to create that social impact.
Amazing. Abeer, we had a request earlier to have the website of Tali, so if you can add it in the chat.
Someone was asking Taali or Tali. لا, it's Tali. يعني التالي اللي هو جتنا التالي. ايوه.
So please you can add that بعد. We have time for one more question إذا someone wants to jump in.
السلام عليكم. مش question بقدر أن أشارككم. Sorry, it's not a question. It's more likely to share some experience. I'm working in the field of energy, and we are trying to reduce the electricity consumption by changing behavior, which is another interesting subject, that how we should create the impact for the people in order to have a social task that everybody is doing it in order to reduce their consumption or to benefit the country. So we try to use different tools. One of them is called nudge, which simply, asking people indirectly how to do things that you want to do without telling them indirect way. So if you can elaborate more, so we can get much flavor more about it, and how we can improve or enhance our or any advice for us will help us in order to succeed in this task.
Thank you for the question, Mohammed. Definitely, it's very interesting and very nice objective that you want to create around saving the environment, which is another value creation and addressing a number of SDGs goals, actually. Definitely, I can't give you a direct answer, just like what I said earlier, that it is a methodology that we need to approach it. And probably that you can do it internally. That first of all, you diagnose the situation, for example, diagnosing the consumption, the challenges, any kind of surveys that shows you the impact that these behavior are obvious. So it's like a collection of data, and then you sit together with the team and truly see what you want to create as a value. What is it? Is it that you want to create healthy, save the environment in regard of the saving energy, changing. Are you changing a behavior? Are you? So it's different values that you want to do, and you cannot do it yourself. You need to work together with your stakeholders. That involves yourself, your management, the population that you work with, or the people that you are trying to, or the target audience that you are trying to address. So you will need to include these and see what the value that you want to create it in this initiative. And then you can design an approach to that value. So it's difficult to give an answer, but you need to see these first, and in order to put an answer for it. I'm happy to be to receive your official request. My first client for today.
Thank you, Abeer. Thank you. Ahmed, some of the things that come to my mind also is the transparency, you know, like having your results, showcasing the results from those nudges and being transparent with your audience and with your stakeholders can be a great motivator.
Yes.
In a recent study about social impact, they found that people respond very well to numbers and to impact. So if they know, you know, like they know what they are investing their money, their energy, and then they feel more called towards creating that change.
Very true, and that I've seen it when I meet with different businesses, that they want to see these numbers, they want to see the impact that they will create, and the numbers, the reflected numbers on the around that. That yes, true that they want to identify that value, but in the end also they want to make the profit. They want to you know, market their initiative. This morning I was in a conversation with a similar business operating in Saudi Arabia, and we were sharing an example that sometimes when we share social responsibility project or assignment, it's always around marketing. If you will see it in the businesses, you will find it under marketing, and which is completely not the purpose that we want to do. It's not marketing, social responsibility at all. It's not marketing. It's about engaging with the community, and it's not only showing off your brand or your profit. It's showing how much value you want to create in the community.
Wow, amazing, Abeer. You know, I'm personally very passionate about everything that you talked about. It was a pleasure having you. And we're getting really a lot of positive feedbacks. I also shared the link of the feedback, and I'm going to share it again for anyone who didn't complete the survey. Please feel free to give us some feedback. وحبير, please ممكن تحطي لنا Tally's website also in the chat. And we thank you so much for your time, and we thank everyone here. We're always happy to connect with you. Shukran.
Yes, Saeedo. Thank you so much for giving me this platform, Dr. Mariam, and everybody who made it for this session. And hopefully, if you get out with something useful for your future, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah. Next year, maybe we hear more about the impact that's been generated this year, inshallah. Inshallah. So are you going to add the thing? Yes. وإذا أي حد عنده أي أسئلة بعد, you're more than welcome to connect with us.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I'm in 3 meetings right now. But every time when I get a chance, I'm coming back to social impact because it is so interesting to hear all the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's our pleasure to have everyone. Shukran, mashkourin. I'm going to keep the room open for a few more minutes so that Abeer can answer your questions. And Abeer, did you post it on the main room?
I don't think so. I sent it to you, so I hope. Because I'm trying to post it.
Okay, I'm gonna post it here. وإذا عندكم أسئلة بعد, I can link it through the email.
contact me. Nadia, reach out to me.
Abeer, is there an email ولا شيء؟
Yes. I'm sorry, I don't know how to post it for everybody.
Okay, so thank you everyone. You have Abeer's email and you have her website, and she's also on the platform, so you can reach out to her through our platform. Please make sure that your platform accounts are activated and complete so that you can have access to all the different features, including connecting with our alumni and our series of Engaged Talk series. Oh, have a great evening until we meet again. Stay happy, I guess.
Thank you.
شكرا عبير. مع السلامة.
مع السلامة.